Welcome to the class. Today we will work on listening one more time. As you know, listening is an essential component for learning language. Listening has several components embedded in it. It's a very complex cognitive process. This process is functioning underlying us, and we don't know much about the algorithm in the sense the way it works for us. In order to learn language, it is important for us to work on listening in the sense that we need to listen to content carefully. It works as input for us, and then it works in the subconscious and helps us reproduce language. We are going to see how this works through exercises. We are going to work on listening, and we are going to look at how it works and what we are expected to retain after listening and how it yields results. At this time, I can also suggest you to do several more exercises the way we are going to do to help you see the output underlying this exercise on listening. Let's go through this and see what we do and how we do it. We have taken up a very short audio clip for this purpose, and then we are going to play this to you. We are going to ask you to listen to that and then see how you work. You can take your time and listen to the full program. We will play a very short portion of that program here for you, and then we will work on exercises, and then we look at the output before we close. So for this purpose, we have taken up an audio clip which talks about language keepers. What does this mean? You see, this is a story of every part of the world. It's about societies that are losing languages. Loss of language is natural phenomena. It's studied in linguistics to a great deal. But we are going to look at a different aspect of that. But in order to do that, as part of the background for this, we suggest you to imagine a scenario where you are the last speaker or last few speakers of your language in the world. You don't have other speakers to speak to. Other people speak different languages. So, and you are convinced, you know that your language, as it works for all languages, holds your history, the words that contain the taste of the food, shapes of the customs. So you are familiar with your customs, you are familiar with your history, you can describe your food, the feelings and texture of relationship that bind you to nature and your community. And imagine there is no one to receive those words, meaning there is no one for you to talk to. How would you feel? I mean, this is not a nice question to ask. I'm leaving this for you to imagine. At the same time, when you imagine things about it, you will need to ask yourself several questions. What questions can you ask to yourself? I am leaving them for your imaginations as well. As I said, it happens quite often. You know, the earth loses her essence, like plants, insects, animals, landscape, habitats. We also lose, in the process, we also lose knowledge, cultures, and not the least, many different languages that contain them. As you know, we are learning. We are in the process of learning language. We are in the process of learning English. English is one of the most widely spoken languages in the world. But there are languages which are not spoken by too many people. In fact, there are languages which are spoken by very few people, as low as 5, 8, 10 people. What happens to them? It's a very moving situation. It's an emotional story about those languages. But we, again, don't go into the emotional part of the story of language loss, but we are going to look at how it helps us learn language, how thinking about it, learning about it, listening about it, cumulatively how these things are going to yield in the result that helps us learn better foundation for making us more confident in speaking English. So, we are picking up something which is talking about threatened diversity. It's known as Language Keepers. It's a 6-part podcast series and it's produced by Emergence magazine. It's about indigenous languages of California. I'm sure you know about California. California is one of the well-known states in the United States of America. It's on the western coast of Pacific, and California is believed to be among the most linguistically diverse region of the world. This is one way of saying, but I can assure you that every part of the world is equally diverse when it comes to measure them in linguistic sense. Every part of the world is linguistically diverse. Again, these are different stories for us to discuss. If you are interested in these, you can learn them additionally. We are going to look at a very short clip from Language Keepers, which is part of Emergence magazine, and listen to this carefully, and then on the other side of this, we will show you what you are expected to retain out of it. So listen to this carefully. You can listen to this again, but important part of this exercise is to listen to this once very carefully, do the exercise, and then you can listen to this multiple times. So you see, when we talk about diversity about languages, when we talk about complex social situations about language, of course California is very diverse and linguistically rich, but at least for us, that is for us in India, this situation is neither frightening nor unique for us. Our story is equally complex, equally diverse, and equally moving. You know, if you make yourself familiar with the efforts made by Ganesh Devi and his team in his project on People's Linguistic Survey of India, he comes up with roughly 800 languages and 68 scripts that are alive in India, many of which are rapidly vanishing. Before this, there was another attempt to study linguistic diversity, and that is also known as Linguistic Survey of India. That was conducted by George Grierson, an American anthropologist. It was conducted a long time ago. Without going into the details of what Grierson did in his project, Grierson came up with the descriptions of 1600 plus languages that were spoken in India. 1600 plus languages are roughly 1/3 of the total languages spoken all over the world. So we are equally diverse, or maybe more diverse than any other part of the world. That's not the matter of debate. The important part is Ganesh Devi, among others, in modern time, and Grierson in the ancient time have studied this. When people study, they go to the nuances of this. But for us, what is important to look at is not the number 1600 or 800, but the difference between these languages, between these numbers, and the extent to which they measure the loss of languages. There are 68 scripts. No, we don't know about all of them, and so many of them are rapidly vanishing. So the point is, the question of language loss is a well-known thing, and people have worked a lot on documenting this part as well. So let's listen to, now we come to the real part. Real part in the sense that now we are going to do the exercise on listening, which is about the things that I have just described you in the background. So you can always think about the content questions related to that, but listen to this carefully, and it's a short audio clip. It's a long audio clip. I'm going to play it for a short period of time, for roughly 5 minutes, and then you can listen to this at your leisure on your own and see how it works for you.
I never dreamed that I would finally be, unfortunately at this particular state in time, to be the last fluent speaker. It was never a goal of mine. There was a mess of us that all started learning language. There was a bunch of us that were getting underneath of this and learning culture and dance again. And I truly believe that there was going to be in my generation, about 15 of us that were really going to just take this, from different families, not just my family, but different families. And at some point I turned around and looked back and I realized I was alone. And then as that other generation, the people born around 1900, 1910, 1915, when they started passing away, I really felt it then.
Welcome to Language Keepers, Emergence Magazine's 6-part journey into the struggle for indigenous language survival in California. I'm Emmanuel Vaughn Lee, executive editor of Emergence Magazine, located on the unceded ancestral lands of the Coast Miwok people of present-day Marin County.
La mesa skola hinne på onen så voice så behine vana
Chipney but we mama in waya hechi
Ahtoi akaru mufiti itani
to aho to aho to haba.
This podcast series is a continuation of Language Keepers, Emergence Magazine's award-winning multimedia story, where we explored the current state of 4 different indigenous California languages and how dedicated families and communities are facing the challenges of revitalizing some of the most vulnerable languages in the world. In 2019, our filmmaking team, led by director Adam Lofton, crisscrossed California, witnessing the language revitalization efforts of Tolowa-Dee-Ni, Karak, Wukchumni, and Kawayasu communities. This critical work is more important than ever as the dwindling number of last remaining fluent speakers document and impart their cultural and traditional knowledge to the next generation of language keepers. "200 years ago, as many as 90 languages and 300 dialects were spoken in California. Today, only half of these languages remain. Losing a language means more than the disappearance of words. Speakers of the Tolowa-Dee-Ni, Karak, Wukchumni, and Kawayasu languages, all of which are considered endangered, are increasingly rejecting predictions of language extinction. Instead, they are choosing to focus their efforts and energies on teaching the next generation, carrying forward the songs and stories of their ancestors, and ensuring that native languages do not fall silent. Throughout this episode, we'll be hearing from speakers of these 4 languages as they share their stories and perspectives. Join us as we examine the histories that brought us to this critical point, the struggle for indigenous cultural survival in America today, and the potential of language revitalization to bring healing to us all as we work to bridge the divides of indigenous and Western worldviews. Take a moment and imagine that you were the last known speaker of the English language. It is your sole responsibility to document every word, phrase, story, and song, and to explain every pronunciation, conjugation, and complicated set of rules. To make things even more daunting, you can't access the millions of books that store and document the English language in all its iterations throughout its history. No Webster's Dictionary or Encyclopedia Britannica. What you do have is the language and the stories that were shared with you orally from your parents and grandparents, and maybe some notes from a few anthropologists and linguists gathered from your ancestors. Now it's up to you to ensure that your language is preserved and passed on within your lifetime. This exercise in imagination is a reality for Lauren Metlajne Bomlin. At 64 years old, he is the sole fluent speaker of Tolowa Dene, a language whose roots are thousands of years older than the oldest giant coastal redwoods of his ancestral home. Here's filmmaker.
So, this was a 5-minute excerpt of the descriptions from this podcast, which is 6-part series carried out by Emergence Magazine. You have heard these 5 minutes, and at this time, we want you to. We have basically picked just a few questions, and these questions will give you an idea about the kinds of things that you need to retain after listening to any conversation, any audio clip, any recorded material. You are expected to retain information. You are expected to use that information later. So, what kind of information we might be expected to retain after listening? So, please look at this. So, it's a Language Keepers is a 6-part podcast series produced by. Who produced this series? It's about indigenous languages of which place? Who is the editor of the Emergence magazine and the host of the podcast series? 200 years ago, how many languages and dialects were spoken in California? The series follows efforts to revitalize 4 of these languages. Wukchimni is mentioned here. What are the rest of the 3 languages that they are talking about? So, when you look at these questions, they give you a sense of, they are basically the test of what you retain from listening. You will come to realize that the Language Keepers is the first part, is a 6-part podcast series produced by Emergence Magazine about the indigenous languages of California. Emmanuel Von Lee is the editor of Emergence Magazine and host of the podcast. These things are there in the audio clip that we just played for you. 200 years ago, as many as 90 languages and 300 dialects were spoken in California. The series follows efforts to revitalize 4 languages: Wukchimni, is mentioned there in your question. The Toloadini, Karuk and Kawaiso are the other three languages that Immanuel Wally is talking about in this series. So this is the kind of information you need to retain. What we also expect you to retain is the pronunciation of the following words in this series in the audio clip. What are those words? Fluent speaker, culture, indigenous, communities, filmmaking, traditional, 90 languages. Survival, potential, moment, language. In addition to these words and phrases, please pay attention to the pronunciation of Wan Lee, the editor, throughout the presentation. How easy is it for you to follow him? Is it difficult? I raise this question for you to think about. Why is it easy, or why is it difficult? How is it difficult? Please familiarize yourself with these questions, challenge yourself with these questions. It's possible to work on it. We have very specifically picked these audio clips for you, and more specifically, we are asking you to listen to the whole hour and allow yourself to see the miracles that these methods produce for you and enable you with better and quality English for giving you much better results and confidence for your functioning. Thank you.